Let's hear how the Gatherer Florist can help you with making a metre matter at Evolve Flowers Live from the Heckington show.
Good morning. So I am Joanna. This is my husband Barry, and together we run the Gatherer Florist, Flower Farm and Nursery. So that's everything wrapped in together. We own a bit like a small holding really. It's like 2.5 acres, mainly cutting flowers, and also a nursery side as well. And we've also got a flower studio where I can do my floristry. We are growing hundreds of different British flowers. We'll tell you a little bit about that in a minute. For our own floristry work, but also we sell to other florists, some of the big players in Sheffield, etc. We sell them bouquets, a little bit on a smaller scale to what Helen's doing. And we also do a range of cutting flowers as well, which we're going to talk to you about. And if you've walked in this marquee, you will have seen that we've made a beautiful herbaceous cutting border with showcasing lots and lots of lovely plants that you can then put in your garden to then cut. So today I'm going to talk to you about making a metre matter in your own garden. So what does that mean? That's talking about... Oh, hello. Is that better? Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah, much better, isn't it? So everybody's talking about sustainable lifestyles, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard more people getting allotments, wanting to grow their own more vegetables. So if you just then extend that a little bit further to, oh, why don't I turn a little bit of my garden into a cutting garden? So then you will always have a supply of cut flowers for your own home. Well, how lovely is that? So let's make that metre matter. Let's create a cutting patch. So where do you want to start then? So you need to think about your position. Where are you going to put this metre? Have a look at your plot, and firstly think about whether that is a north-facing patch or if it's really southern. So if you think south-facing, full-on sun, north can be a little bit shady, and obviously east or west. The ideal cutting patch would have a good combination actually, would have a little bit of sun in there and also some shade as well. So first thing to consider, where is that metre going to be? You can still all hear me all right, can't you? You're nodding, yeah. I'm not shouting too much. So also, the next thing to consider is how exposed it is to wind. So if you think about some of tall stem cutting flowers, if they get... I mean, we're going to give you an example here, so that's verbena. Just think about how exposed it is to wind, etc. So you might want to consider positioning some of those plants nearer a fence or a border, or just somewhere where it can get a little bit of shelter. So an ideal thing would be probably to put a nice flowering shrub in there, and that will give you a little bit of protection, particularly when you've got some tender plants, but much later on in the season when they've got some height and they get into the ideal stem length when you want to cut. The worst thing in the world is getting out to cut something and it's been damaged by wind.
The other thing to do is to invite our friend from Lincolnshire.
He's going to wave at me right now, who has a fantastic range of plant supports, as you can see, that are really good high quality and actually worth the investment, trust me. The last thing, like I say, if you've got lovely blooms in your cutting patch and then you're losing them to wind, when you could have just quite easily put a few supports in that would save them for you. So worth the investment. There you go, nice plug for you. So then when you think about you're in your plan and prepping stage, you need to think about muck. When I say muck, I mean soil. So what kind of conditions are you growing in? Is this well-drained area or is it clay? And if anybody goes, oh God, I've got clay, don't despair in that. There is absolutely loads of different plants that are suitable for cutting that will grow really happily in clay. Hydrangeas, these beautiful examples here, will do really, really well in clay. Roses, so I'm going to point over to Gregory's roses over here, who's got a fantastic supply. They'll do really, really well in clay conditions. And another example, so here's a Rebecca. So Rebecca's and an Echinacea, similar kind of family. They'll do really well in those conditions. So don't ever despair if somebody goes, oh, I've got clay, it's rubbish, I can't grow anything. You can. There's lots of different options for you. We do actually have lots of conversations with people, particularly if they've got a new build house where you've moved in, it's a new plot, you want to create something, and often the soil depth isn't there, but also the soil quality isn't there as well. Think about these building plots where they're probably just putting a whole load of anything into the groundwork that they're doing. So often new builds are people sort of struggle or think about how they're going to then plant in those areas. So just doing that plan and prep stage and investing in some good conditioner for your soil before you start will save you a lot of plant replacements in the future. And that you want to start off in the best possible place that you can do before you start planting. Do you want to talk a little bit about no dig? Have anybody heard of no dig, the no dig method? Okay, so we know some flower farmers that have adopted this method, if not across their whole flower farm, but in certain areas to test how effective it is. And what the first thing they say is it saves time. And you know, we're all short of time, aren't we? So that's one of the benefits that they're trying the no dig method for. So another thing you need to think about when you're in this planning stage is water. And if you've had a couple of months like we've just had where there's no water around at all, then it becomes even more poignant, particularly if we're going to get hotter summers. You really need to think about access to water. So can you get a hose pipe to your cutting patch? Is it easy? Do you want to be putting a water butt somewhere close to it? So we would always advocate for conserve as much rainwater as you can. Rainwater is so much better for your plants, and if you're a gardener, you'll probably already nodding your head and saying you know that, because you know it's just better. They'll thank you for it. So wherever possible, if you can conserve water, rainwater, and then water your patch from that, your plants will thank you for it. You'll all know that, you know, when you're in sort of full on summer months that we've got at the minute, or we've just had, first thing in the morning watering, last thing at night watering. Do not waste your time doing it full sun in the day, because it just evaporates, and you really are, one, wasting your time, and secondly, we're wasting water. So now to the sexy part. We're going to talk plants now. So that's the bit that everybody really wants to know about. And you know, a metre will give you a really good, abundant patch, to be quite honest, as long as you've done that prep and that planning stage. And now we're going to move on to talk about what sort of things you would want to put in that cutting patch. So we always start with perennials. So perennials come back every year, give you good yields and a good solid plant. So some of my favourites would be dahlias. I absolutely love a good dahlia. I would go lots of Rebeckias and that, because I like the variety you can get with Rebeckia, and good stem lengths. Things like delphiniums are a really good cutting patch plant as well. So if you think about a delphinium, you're going to get your first bloom in the late spring, and then I always cut ours back a little bit, give them a little bit of a boost, and then they'll bloom again. So great plant, blooms twice. What a great cutting plant to have. Always think about as well that you want interest all year round in that cutting patch. So there's no point having a patch that's empty from September through to May. That's a waste really, isn't it? So think about in those key months, 6 months of the year, what you would like to see, maybe a different variety coming up and blooming for you throughout those months. So every month you've got something new to look forward to come in, and then cutting and bringing into the house. Voice is going a little bit. So once we've done that perennial stage, we can start to think of probably adding in a few biennials. I would add in something like sweet rocket, maybe a nice foxglove if you've got like a bit of a shady area. Foxglove would be a great one to add in. And this is a nostalgic one, but throwing back honesty. So honesty, obviously, lovely, lovely, nice, delicate flower, which is nice for cutting. But obviously you can then leave the seed heads. You've got the seed heads as well. So that's a plant that I think, whilst it's quite nostalgic, it gives you quite a lot for your money. And then moving on to annuals. Now we have lots of debates with people about annual plants, whether they're worth the time, the effort. And I appreciate that, you know, as our summers are getting hotter, bedding plants are sort of like, do we want to bother putting those out and that? But there really is a place for annual plants within a cutting patch. Again, some of my favourites would be Ami, which we have got in the Metre box over on the Flowers from the Farm stand. So there's a lovely nice meadow box. It's been made with jam jars, and there's some beautiful ami in there. Dacus carota, so wild carrot, beautiful plant. Cosmos. If you don't have cosmos in your cutting patch, you need to have a word with yourselves, all right? Because that is an absolute must-have. The varieties you can get with cosmos, the lovely colours, the bold, just the movement of the plant and what have you is just delightful. So yeah, if you're not growing cosmos, we need to have a word with you. So they're a couple of my favourites, and probably one more to throw in there will be zinnias, because they're just the vast pops of colour you get in there. And I know that Helen's decorated this tree lovely. I'm just going to point out some zinnias here. Look at these beautiful colours. I mean, just delightful, those pops of colour. I mean, it's really, really summer that does, that whole palette there. But you've got to have a few zinnias in your cutting patch, really. And then having that variety in there means that you're always going to have a supply of things that you'll be able to cut and fill a bowl, fill a vase, fill a little, you know, a little arrangement and that, and bring them in home. So it doesn't stop there though. So I know we've talked about dahlias that will get you into sort of like the late summer, early autumn. But so once your dahlias are going, you need to think about what's going to happen in the spring. So think about autumn planting, get some spring bulbs in there as well. So we would look at some nice different types of narcissi, some tulips, some anemones, and then moving on to soaliums. So at least then come that next season, so when you think the spring, you're going to get some nice pops of colour coming up and be able to fill a vase for Easter. That would be my aim. As long as I've got something in there that will just get me to Easter and fill a bit of colour in the house, then you've made it. Now, we are members of Flowers from the Farm, which is a trade organisation of British flower farmers. There's about 1,500 of them across the UK that's hosted on a website. Basically, you just pop your postcode in there and it will actually bring up all the flower farmers in your locality that are local to you. They'll tell you whether they're wholesale, whether they sell cutting plants, or whether they're a florist, DIY, pick your own. So there's cards over there if anybody wants to pick one up. It'll talk to you and they'll say that is a lovely showcase for British flowers, and we'll show you what you could have in your metre cutting patch right now, just in a metre. So there's a lovely meadow box over there and a lovely churn. Everything there you could have in your cutting garden plant patch right now. So that's us. That's a little bit about who we are and what we talk about, and hopefully that's given you a bit of insight into creating a cutting patch and making that metre matter. If you want any more information about cut flowers, British plants, we're over on the stand there, and we've brought a range of those available for sale, and I'm also available if you want to talk to us about Flowers from the Farm as well. And if you've got any questions, you can also, well, you can do if you want to, but if anybody's got